Thank you. Josh, will open the door. The virtual lobby door is also open.
Yes.
It is the on-site lobby. Okay, we'll now reconvene the public meeting on August 8th, 2025. The next item on our public session agenda, next items are items 5 through 14, the consent calendar. The first question is on those matters. Does anybody on the commission want to remove an item from that list? Hearing and seeing none, I'll accept the motion on the consent calendar. Vice Chair, please.
I move the commission approve the consent calendar on the public agenda as presented.
You comments, questions, colleagues? Hearing and seeing none, the administrator will call the roll on the consent calendar for the public session agenda.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez.
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler.
Aye.
Commissioner Jancy.
Aye.
Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner McCulley.
Aye.
Commissioner Burke.
Aye.
Chair Fisco.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
Okay, we'll now move to the subject of lobbyist penalty reductions presented by the executive director, item 15.
Yes, commissioners. Item 15, this lobbyist failed to timely file or correctly file and answer the questions on the lobbying quarterly expenditure reports. There were multiple conversations, but it took quite some time to get the lobbyist to correctly fill out the forms. As a result, in 2024, there were $5,000 in accrued penalties in Q3. In Q4 of 24, there were $4,050 in accrued penalties. And in Q1 of 2025, there were $30. Based on our standard process, my recommendation is that for Q3 of 24, it would be a letter of education as a first violation. For Q4 of 24, it would be a reduction to 10%, which would be a $400 penalty. And then for Q1 of 25, no reduction as it's below the threshold for reduction.
Thank you, Director. Any comments on the report you've heard? Reduction amounts that you've recommended are within a normal practice and based on the matrix.
Yes.
Am I right in both regards?
Yes,
Have I missed something? Friendly question.
that is correct.
Thank you. Any questions, colleagues? I'm ready for a motion, Vice Chair, on item 15.
I move that the commission approve the staff recommendation for lobbyist penalty reductions in item 15 of the public session agenda.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Seeing no questions about the motion, we'll ask the administrator to call the roll on our public session, item 15.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez.
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler.
Aye.
Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner Jancy.
Aye.
Commissioner Burke.
Aye.
Commissioner McCulley.
Aye.
Chair Fisco.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
Okay, regarding lobbyist client penalty reductions, executive, please, on item 16.
Yes, this lobbyist client had a previous violation and received a letter of education. So the recommendation, there were 3 violations, 23, 24, and 25. The recommendation based on those violations is for the Q3 23, no reduction because the $10 is the threshold. For Q3 of 24, a reduction from $20 to $15. And then for Q2 of 25, a reduction from $60 to $30.
Thank you. Any questions for our executive? Hearing and seeing none, Vice Chair, please.
I move that the commission approve the staff recommendation for lobbyist client penalty reductions on item 16 of the public session agenda.
Heard the motion, no questions that I see. Administrator will call the roll. Item 16, please.
Commissioner Jancy,
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion pass 8-0.
Thank you, colleagues. We now move to stipulated final orders under a consent calendar. However, a question, I have an indication that Mr. Taylor and Ms. Silber want to appear before us via Teams or phone. How should we proceed with regard to this question?
They indicated they didn't want to comment. They
Oh.
simply wanted to observe.
Okay, and
So
so,
we do not need to remove them.
thank you very much. And so they could now be observing as far as we know. Am I right? Okay, now comes the stipulated final orders via the consent calendar. All of those items that you see before you from items 17 through 27 can be adopted with one motion. Any question, anybody want to remove an item from that list? Hearing and seeing none, the vice chair will make a motion, please, on stipulated final orders consent calendar.
I move the commission approve the proposed stipulated final orders presented on the consent calendar as the final orders in those cases, and the chairperson be authorized to sign them as such.
You've heard the motion. Any questions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, the administrator will call the roll on the consent calendar, items 17 through 27 on block.
Commissioner Jancy,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
Okay, we have now reports of investigation. Further, a couple items on the consent calendar, items 28 and 29. Does anybody want to see one of those items removed or the other? Hearing and seeing none, Vice Chair, please, the motion relative to the consent calendar on 28 and 29 after our executive makes a comment to us, please.
So I would like to make a brief comment.
Oh,
So,
please.
in terms of item 29, as the memo I provided indicates, this was a case initiated. The investigator is no longer with us. It was left incomplete. And as we were attempting to, I want to clean up any old cases. So this one we were attempting to and confirmed that Mr. Groves had passed away. So I'm asking that be administratively dismissed. Item 28 is obviously a very old case. There's no one at the commission who was even around when this case was actively before the commission. I don't have a good explanation for what happened in terms of moving this case through. But what I do know is at this point, it would be very difficult to proceed with any completion of the investigation or a contested case simply because of the time that has passed and accessibility to any witnesses or anything else. So my recommendation these many years later would be to administratively close this case.
Thank you. I apologize for failing to remember you wanted to make those comments. Well stated. Colleagues, any questions for our executive on items 28 and 29 before we consider those in tandem on a consent calendar?
Well,
Okay, here,
Chair,
Please.
is it too late to pull one of them out
no,
and consider it separately, and that would be 28 so that I can abstain? We have the numbers, right?
Yes. Thank you for that. Let's consider
Thank
item
you.
28 first. We'll now ask the vice chair to make a motion on item 28 on your public session agenda for today. Please, 28 alone.
Wait, I think we're pulling out 28 to consider 28, so 29 would be on the consent calendar, or was it the other way around?
Pulling 28 into an individual thing. The effect of that
Is your
by
vote?
reality is they'll both be considered individually as we proceed through 28 because our request to pull it and 29 is the only remaining item. So we'll have two motions. Am I right, through executive? Motion on 28, please.
Okay, I understand now.
Thank you.
So my motion now would be to, wait, okay. I'm going to ask for assistance on what my motion now is for an administrative dismissal.
Executive, suggest a motion, please.
I think the motion could be to adopt staff recommendation to administratively dismiss.
Okay.
that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I move that the commission adopt the staff recommendation to administratively dismiss item 28 on the reports of investigation on the public session agenda.
Thank you for your precision, Vice Chair. Appreciate that very much. You've heard the motion. No questions about it. The administrator will call the roll. Item 28.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Burke,
I'm sorry, I was muted. Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
I abstain.
that's right, thank you. Commissioner Mettler,
Aye.
Commissioner Jancy,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed
Thank you,
7-0 with one abstention.
Thank you for stopping us, Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez. We'll now consider item 29. The Vice Chair will make the similar motion, please.
I move that the commission adopt the staff recommendation to administratively dismiss item 29 in the reports of investigation on the public session agenda.
For the motion, questions? Hearing and seeing none, the administrator will call the roll. Item 29.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler,
Aye.
Commissioner Jancy,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
Okay, colleagues, the time has now come for the reports of investigation presented by investigators, of which there is one. There are 9 individuals. Pardon me, Vice Chair, please, if I missed you.
Oh, I assume this one may take a little time. And can I request a 5-minute bio break before we proceed into the next agenda
Absolutely.
items?
We don't need to vote on that because it's not a motion. We'll now take a 5-minute bio break.
Thank you.
So we could consider we'll vote one by one, but they can all be there. Only Mr. Sterringer is representing 5 of them.
Yes.
That
You do that? There you go.
Is Shanoa back?
It's constantly recording. We just need it.
There she is. Got enough?
Mhm.
The gavel indicates, colleagues, that we're now back in the public session on August 8th, 2025. Our process, and thank you for the suggestion, Vice Chair, I appreciate it. Now we're going to proceed to consider items 30 through 36. We're in public session, so several persons have indicated their intent to be with us by teams. That's just fine. No need for waiving confidentiality at all. Our process will be as follows. We'll consider a report from our investigator, Mr. Sullivan, that would apply to all of these matters, the recommendations in our agenda being the same for each. After which we'll have questions for him. We'll turn to our respondents for any comments they choose to make. Multiple persons online in any way they choose. Keeping remarks as brief as possible and to the point. We appreciate you being here. Then we'll move toward a decision. All of that said, for all these items, the first basic report from our investigator, Investigator Sullivan, please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fiscum and Commission. This is Investigator Josh Sullivan for the record. I'm presenting agenda items number 30 through 36. This is an executive session complaint against the school board members for the Multnomah County School District 10J, also known as the Gresham Barlow School District. The complaint in this case states that the GBSD board members may have violated Oregon Public Meetings Law by making a final decision during the executive session of a board meeting held on November 6, 2024. At its March meeting, the commission found cause to open an investigation to determine whether the board violated the executive session provisions of public meetings law. The investigation in this complaint indicates that the GBSD board members held an executive session on November 6 to consider information exempt from public inspection pursuant to ORS 192-660 sub 2 sub F. The audio recording of the executive session indicates that the GBSD legal counsel was present for the discussions and provided legal advice to the GBSD board. The recording of the executive session indicates that the presentation was conducted by the vice chair, not legal counsel, and the vice chair discussed the complaints received, the factual basis and merits of the complaints, and the potential responses to the complaints with the GBSD board. When the board engaged in these discussions in executive session, they were no longer discussing legal advice as authorized by the executive session provision. The board's conversations were not considering information or records exempt from public inspection, and their actions went beyond considering an exempt public record and fall into deliberations, which were not authorized by the cited executive session provision. In this case, the board discussed the motion to be made in the public session of the meeting and the response to the complaint, which was part of the board's decision-making process in responding to the complaints filed. Thus, the actions of the board in the executive session constituted deliberations which are not authorized to occur under an executive session called under 192-660 sub 2 sub F. The information indicates that the GBSD board came to a consensus during the executive session and then made a final decision in the open session of the meeting on how to respond to the complaints. The recommendation is that the Oregon Government Ethics Commission should make a preliminary finding that the GBSD board members violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub F by engaging in unauthorized deliberations and exceeding the scope of the executive session. The commission should further order that the case be moved to a contested case proceeding or that a negotiated settlement be entered.
Investigator, time now comes if you colleagues, commissioners want to ask any questions at this point of our investigator, and if not now, there will be time later as well. So any questions from anybody based on the report you've just heard? Okay, otherwise, respondents, my records indicate that several persons intend to appear either by Teams or in one case by phone today. I'll mention the names. Chris Howard, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Yes, hear you.
Sean Ferens, can you hear me?
They were on earlier, but did end up, oh, nope, they're back. They raised their hand.
To indicate yes.
Thank you, Sean Ferens, for raising your hand. Kathy Keithley,
I can hear you.
thank you. Blake Peterson on the phone, perhaps? We'll assume Mr. Peterson may be trying to join. If your phone is on mute, Mr. Peterson, press *6.
Chair Fiscom, I can tell you that Mr. Peterson wasn't sure he would be able to call in today because
Thank
of
you very
travel.
much. I appreciate that. We weren't going to wait very long for him in light of our need to proceed. Also, I have two councils who are intended to be with us, Mr. Robert Steringer and Mr. Elliott Field. I see Mr. Steringer. Mr. Field, can you hear me?
Mr. Field said I can hear, but I cannot enable my camera or microphone.
Okay, so we'll assume he can hear us and won't be able to speak to us in the next moments. Okay, our process now calls for our respondents to have a chance to speak to us about what's before us today. Mr. Steringer knows well what's before us as he's appeared on previous occasions. Thank you for being back, Mr. Steringer. Are you going to speak for the group, or is the group going to speak as well? Please let us know how you intend to proceed.
Thank you, Chair Fiscom. I should clarify for the commission that I represent 4 of the individuals who are the subject here. And for your record, that is Sean Ferens, Kathy Keithley, Holly Riegelman, and Blake Peterson. And
thank you for that clarification. I meant to say that myself, so I apologize for not doing so. One more thing, Mr. Steringer. First, I see Mr. Field's face on the screen. It says you're muted, Mr. Field. So maybe you could unmute and indicate whether you can hear me or not.
Good afternoon. I was able to leave, return, and camera and microphone working. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so for the record, Mr. Field represents the district, am I right? The school
That's
district?
correct.
Okay, and Mr. Steringer represents the 4 individuals whose names you can provide them, Mr. Steringer, for the record.
Thank you, Chair Fiscom. The 4 individuals are Sean Ferens, Kathy Keithley, Holly Riegelman, Blake Peterson, and also for your record, I'm Bob Steringer.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that scene set, the time now has arrived for respondents of the quote-unquote respondents to make any comments to what you choose to make. For the record, I'll turn to Mr. Steringer first, and we'll proceed in that direction. When anybody who wants to speak has spoken, we'll then have time to ask you questions that might come up based on what you say or what documents you happen to have sent to us in advance. So, Mr. Steringer, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Fiscom, members of the commission and staff. Again, Bob Steringer representing the 4 individuals noted earlier. We did have an opportunity to submit a written a letter to the commission. I know it was lengthy. I hope you had at least an opportunity to skim it. I will try not to repeat everything in there, and we'll welcome any questions you have after I summarize the issues that we would ask the commission to consider. And the punchline here, of course, is our request is that the complaint be dismissed as to these individuals for the reasons I will share with you. We have raised both procedural and substantive concerns with the recommendation that the commission find a violation of the executive session rules. And the procedural issue, just to clear that out of the way before talking about what's really at issue. The procedural issue is, as Investigator Sullivan shared with you a moment ago, this was a complaint about that alleged that the school board had made a decision in the executive session when that's not allowed by law. That was the complaint that was moved forward through preliminary review to the investigation phase, and that allegation was the basis for a stipulated final order that the commission had proposed to the individuals as a settlement. It wasn't until 2 weeks ago that we heard that staff had a new theory of violation, which is that the board members had gone beyond the permissible scope of the executive session and were deliberating a matter in a way that went beyond considering the legal advice that had been provided to them. And so these individuals never had an opportunity to engage with staff on that issue or to be able to provide some of the information that we have pulled together quickly to provide to you here just immediately prior to your meeting. And so for that reason, we just needed to note for the record that in our view, at least, that is inconsistent with the requirements of ORS 244.260 sub 5 sub B, which requires that investigations be limited to matters that are communicated to the respondents at the time that the commission initiates an investigation following the preliminary review. That's the procedural issue. But substantively, and really, in our view, this should be the basis for dismissing the complaint. It appears that there's just a simple misunderstanding about what actually was said during the executive session that the school board had. The recommendation to you from staff that you find a violation is based on an interpretation of the audio recording that that concludes that the vice chair led the meeting and have the exact language here, but it was that the vice chair had opened the meeting and had presented the matter and presented the options and led the meeting in that fashion. And it wasn't until toward the end of the meeting that legal counsel became directly engaged in the discussions. And I think maybe this is just a mistake, but the very first thing that Vice Chair Keithley said to the board when she introduced this matter was, everyone saw the letter from Elliott in terms of the new complaints by Mr. Martin and per Elliott's letter. What she's referring to is a legal memorandum that was provided by District Legal Counsel, Mr. Field, who is here today. And then Vice Chair Keithley goes on to summarize for the board what it was that Mr. Field included in his memo. So when she's talking about the options that are available to the board in responding to this complaint, she's referring to the options that are specified in this legal memorandum. And that is exactly what is permitted under ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub F in a executive session called for the purpose of considering exempt documents. The board is able to look at something like a memorandum provided by legal counsel, which would be exempt from disclosure under the public records law, hear about it and consider it. That's the language of the statute. And so that is all that has happened, that happened in that meeting. Ms. Keithley summarized what the advice was from Mr. Field. There were some reactions to that, directly to that, and then they had further discussions about that advice with legal counsel who was there at the time. So just to be clear, I think what the disconnect is there was a staff interpretation of Ms. Keithley's comments as being her own deliberation on what they should do about these complaints, when what she was really doing was summarizing the legal advice that was the very basis for the executive session. I noted in my letter that we're at a disadvantage because here in public session, we really can't talk about what the legal advice was to be able to go into greater detail about that. But what I did instead was invited Mr. Field to join the meeting if he was able to, and he was, to be able to answer any questions generally or to confirm that what I'm telling you is true, and that in fact, what you would hear if you were to listen to the recording is a consideration of the legal memo that he had provided and the board was considering. So that's why we're here today, to ask that the commission dismiss the complaint. There wasn't a violation here of the executive session rules. The board did exactly what they were allowed to do under ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub F, which is considered the legal memorandum that Mr. Field had provided. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Sterringer, thank you very much for your comments today, as well as your letter. And I know my colleagues appreciate both. My proposal at the moment is we keep hearing from respondents, anybody else who wants to speak, and then we'll ask questions respectively of anybody who has spoken. So I'm happy to go with whoever wants to be next, and the next person who wants to speak, whether it's Mr. Ferens, Sean Ferens, Kathy Keithley, Chris Howard, who wants to be next, or Mr. Field. Either any of you choose to speak, just say your name and speak for the record as briefly as you can.
This is Elliot Field. I'll just
Please.
step in briefly.
Please
Thank you,
proceed.
Chair, Commission, and staff. If you can hear me okay?
Please proceed. Thank you very much.
So in large part, this brief presentation of mine will just echo what Mr. Sterringer had to share, which is in advance of the November 6, 2024 meeting, I wrote a confidential attorney-client communication to the board, which is a record exempt from public inspection and meets the criteria for consideration in executive session under ORS 192.662F. And in that letter, I provided legal advice to the board related to complaints that had been made against the board chair, the board policies that were invoked as a result of that complaint, options that the board could take in response, and that included possible motion language for potential action based on those options in order to legally comply with board policy, in order to adequately respond to those complaints. And then the board spent the executive session period devoted under 2F considering that information in my letter. So as a consequence, the board did not exceed the scope of the authority granted under 2F and 192.660.
Thank you, Mr. Field. Appreciate it. Any comments from Chris Howard, Sean Ferens, Kathy Keithley?
I'd like to make just a few points, and it just reiterates the comments from Mr. Field and Mr. Sterringer. And as I read,
Please do so. Identify yourself for the record and proceed. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, Kathy Keithley. Just to reiterate all the conversations, when I first started, it was at 1:34. At 4:49, I talked about the conversation with Elliot about the letter. At 6:31, it says, go to the suggestion from Elliot, which was listed in the bottom of the letter. The conversation continued through 12:35. And then at some point, or at 14:54, Blake asked what the other complaint was, and Kathy read from the letter the third complaint. And then at 12:42, Holly read what the third complaint was. And then at the end, we just agreed to all go with choosing number 4 from the letter to respond to all the complaints, or option number 4. So I just wanted to note that for the record, that throughout the entire conversation, we were reading from the actual letter itself.
Thank you. Dr. Ferens or Chris Howitt, any comments you choose to make? Now's the time.
I defer
Chris
to, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Chris Howitt first,
Yeah.
please proceed. Identify yourself for the record.
Chris Howitt, former board chair, current board member, Gresham Barlow Board of Education. Thank you. The material has been presented, and I would like to just clarify that I believe I was referenced in some of the statements about saying that's what we'll do. We need to do that in open session. My references were to making a motion in open session for whatever decision that we decided in open session, that it would require a motion to make that decision, that we were not making a motion, we were not deciding in executive session. We had our options, and we had to do one of those options when we went out for our main business meeting.
Thank you. Dr. Ferens, any comments?
No, this is Sean Farnes, board member for Gresham Barlow School District. I just wanted to, defer to Bob and Elliot and thank them for their presentations, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you very much for being here. The time now comes, commission colleagues, for us to ask questions of our respondents today. So I'm looking at my colleagues online to see if there are any questions anybody wants to ask of anybody who has spoken to us today. I have a question that I'll ask, and Mr. Sterringer, Mr. Field, anybody can answer it. I think I know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway, just for the record. I've been led by your comments to believe that any comments made by persons in the executive session were made pursuant to a confidential legal communication from district legal counsel. Am I right in that regard from your vantage point?
Chair Fiscum, yes. From our vantage point, all comments made in the executive session were in consideration of the confidential legal advice that Mr. Field had provided in written form.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll return to our investigators, quote unquote, if that's the right word, around our table here to see if any responses from either the executive or Mr. Sullivan. So I'll turn to the executive first, who has her hand raised. Please, Director Myers, please.
Yes, Chair Fiscum and Commissioners. I want to clarify what happened in these cases on our end and respond to some of Bob's arguments that were set forth in his letter. So, procedurally, his letter asserts that the respondents were notified that consideration of whether there was an unauthorized discussion of whether what was discussed was authorized by the provision cited, but that they weren't notified until 2 weeks ago that would be something that we would be looking at in the investigation. However, what we were looking at in the investigation is what was set forth in the PR report and that the commission voted on. And referring to page 7 and 8 of the PR report, what it said is
PR means
of the preliminary review report.
Thank you.
Excuse me, is that a review of the executive session minutes and recordings is necessary to determine whether the board was discussing the complaints themselves, which are not exempt by law from public inspection, or whether they were discussing legal advice in the memorandum, which could be exempt by law. So, and that is what the commission then voted on when it moved these matters to investigation, was moved to investigate whether they would have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2, which is separate from 192.660 sub 6, which is the don't make a final decision. Separately, I want to bring to the commission's attention that I think it was the June meeting, at some point, there were stipulated final orders that had been placed on the agenda. I don't think everyone had signed, but some of the respondents had signed. That had been placed on the agenda for the commission to review and approve. And prior to the meeting, when I was looking at them and talking to Josh and Casey, and we had received a response or something from Bob, I had concerns. And so I elected to pull those steps from the agenda because they had focused on the final decision question, whether they had reached a consensus or had made a final decision. And I think Bob had raised concerns. I had concerns that it wasn't right. And I do think it is important that the commission get the right answers and that people don't just skip to get rid of a case. That's not what we should be doing. So we pulled those. And part of the reason we wanted to present the report rather than the steps is, one, we wanted to clarify that upon our further review, we agree that it wasn't a final decision. It was a consensus, so that would not have been a violation. As part of that review, we looked at what was actually said in the commission meeting or the authority granted when the commission moved it to investigation. That leads to the only crux of the issue before us right now is, was the discussion in executive, was all of the discussion in executive session authorized by the provision cited? When they go in, to the extent they were discussing or considering the legal memorandum, the advice of counsel, counsel doesn't have to be there, but to the extent they can read the memo, they can discuss or consider the memo. To the extent that they were then discussing, okay, we've had this discussion, we know what our options are now. We have these complaints. What are we going to do about the complaints? Let's make a motion to do this, and then I will send a letter, and we move back into open session. It is literally a very short period of time. You can discuss the legal memo all this time for 20 minutes or 3 hours or whatever it is. I don't know how long these exec sessions were. The time period when maybe they weren't discussing the memo, but we're discussing, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this motion, and then we're going to do X, Y, Z. That isn't a discussion of the advice. That's a discussion of the underlying matter and how the board wants to proceed. All of that being said, that part of the discussion was a relatively short period. I don't know how long these were, but I think that was maybe 30 seconds to a minute.
It was the final, minute or so.
So I certainly do think that it would be within the commission's discretion to dismiss, but from a purely legal perspective, our recommendation is based on, is that discussion covered by that very brief part of the discussion, is that covered by the provision cited?
Thank you, Executive. Investigator Sullivan, anything to add to that? Don't feel no pressure if there's nothing to add.
No, I don't have anything.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, the time is now for us to ask further questions of anybody who can respond, as well as to begin thinking about how to proceed in this matter. I have a couple comments, but I want to yield to my colleagues first. I have at least one comment. I yield to my colleagues first. Anybody have a comment on how we should proceed in this matter in light of what you've heard and read? By rating, I mean the original report from our investigator, Mr. Sterringer's letter, and their comments today. Vice Chair, at the risk of putting pressure on you, any comments from you I see your sign, I
Well-
prompted you to raise your hand, right? Please raise your
I
hand.
mean, this is perplexing to me for a couple of reasons. I mean, Executive, I really appreciate your desire and thoroughness to get this correct, but I'm really convinced, I guess, by the sort of procedural issues here that are raised, because it seems to me that if we're going to be changing the basis for the investigation and the scope of the investigation, that the commission itself has to be the one that does that, and has to make a motion to do that, because otherwise the investigation is confined to the original notice, and maybe I missed an explanation on that. But I'm very big on due process. I'm very big on the rule of law, and it seems like we can't skirt that. So I don't know that we've ever had staff come back to us to do that. And I don't know how logistically that would work, but it seems like that has to happen. And then on the substantive issues, it does seem like a close call as to whether they're considering the legal advice memo when the legal advice memo itself is discussing possible issues. So and recommendations. So I'm inclined to dismiss on this, but I'd love to hear further thoughts from you, Executive Director.
Yes, I want to correct something. When the commission moved this to investigation, they moved it to investigation under all of the provisions, to look at the notice, to look at what was discussed in the executive session under subsection 2, separately to look at, was there a final decision under subsection 6? So the commission already moved all of that to investigation. So we didn't expand the scope. I think some of the confusion was that when that initial stipulated final order was presented, it really only addressed the final decision thing. And that was where I had concerns that we were getting it wrong. So this isn't an expansion of the scope. It was what the commission did when it moved it to investigation. Now, substantively, I think is the question for the commission. Was the very short, brief discussion, once they finished talking about the legal advice, is that enough that you feel there was a violation? That, I think, is the decision for the commission.
Vice Chair, any follow-up? If not, no problem.
So the notice that Mr. Steringer attached to his letter doesn't identify the issues to be investigated. Do we normally, when we send that notice to individuals, is there like something else other than this email? Or is it just assumed that the issues and the complaint have been moved to investigation? Because it seems like we could do a better job of identifying those issues that have moved to investigation. As Mr. Steringer points out, at least in this email from Investigator Sullivan, it just says that we voted to move your case to investigation, but it doesn't identify the issues. So perhaps we would have moved some statutes to investigation and some not, but those aren't identified in this email. I might suggest that for future notices, we identify the specific issues or specific statutes that have been moved to the investigation phase, so we avoid these sorts of issues in the future.
Valid point.
Any other comments, Executive? Thank you. Colleagues, any other comments? I have one in a minute, but I don't want to step on someone's line. If you have a comment to make, I'm looking for hands and seeing none. I would just say that I want to be associated with our Vice Chair's recent comments in the last moment or two, and What I would say is this, even though appropriately I have not seen the legal memo that Mr. Field drafted for his board, my sense is that that memo, whatever it was and said, controls the executive session discussion by the Multnomah County School District 10J. If that memo included possible options, discussion of possible options, it would be understandable for that to be discussed by those members. And so I'm inclined, along with our vice chair, to dismiss. That said, I'm happy for others to either take issue with what I just said or make any comments you choose to make before we head toward a decision. I'll see if the floor gets occupied by somebody. Hearing and seeing nobody else, Vice Chair, I'll see if you're ready to make a motion which would pertain in terms of the specific motion you make to on our public session agenda, item 30, better numbers 24-626 involving Chris Howard and the Multnomah County School District 10J.
I am prepared to move to dismiss this, but I will defer to somebody else if they would like to make a different motion.
Please make that motion. I don't see a
Okay,
hand, so I appreciate your comment.
I will. Okay. For agenda, I'm starting with agenda item 30.
30, yes.
For agenda item 30, Chris Howard, I move the commission dismiss the complaint.
Thank you, colleagues. You've heard the motion as expressed by our vice chair. Any comments on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, the administrator will call the roll. Item 30 on our public session agenda.
Commissioner Burke.
That would be aye.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez.
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler.
Aye.
Commissioner Jancy.
Aye.
Sorry, was that nay?
Commissioner Jancy said.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley.
Aye.
Chair Fisco.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
We'll now proceed to item 31, believing we've had enough discussion. Vice Chair, please, item 31.
For agenda item 31, I move the commission dismiss the complaint against Sean Ferens.
For the motion, the administrator will call the roll. Item 31.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez.
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler.
Aye.
Commissioner Jancy.
Aye.
Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley.
Aye.
Commissioner Burke.
Aye.
Chair Fisco.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
You, item 32, Vice Chair, please.
For agenda item 32, I move the commission dismiss the complaint against Kathy Keithley.
For the motion, the administrator will call the roll, please. Item 32.
Commissioner Jancy.
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler.
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez.
Aye.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley.
Aye.
Commissioner Burke.
Aye.
Chair Fisco.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
Thank you. Item 33, Vice Chair, please.
For agenda item 33, I move the commission dismiss the complaint against respondent Holly Riegelman.
Vice Chair, thank you, Vice Chair. The administrator will call the roll. Item 33.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez.
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler.
Aye.
Commissioner Jancy.
Aye.
Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley.
Aye.
Commissioner Burke.
Aye.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Chair Fisco.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
Moving on, item 34, Vice Chair, please.
For agenda item 34, I move the commission dismiss the complaint against respondent Blake Peterson.
Administrator will call the roll, please. Item 3-4.
Commissioner Mettler,
Aye.
Commissioner Jancy,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
Thank you. Moving on, item 3-5. Vice Chair, please.
For agenda item 35, I move the commission dismiss the complaint against respondent Myra Gomez.
Administrator will call the roll, please. Item 3-5.
Commissioner Jancy,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Commissioner
Commissioner
Burke,
Burke.
you're on mute.
So I am. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
Thank you. Moving on, item 3-6. Vice Chair.
For agenda item 36, I move the commission dismiss the complaint against respondent David Legatich.
Administrator will call the roll, please. Item 3-6.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mettler,
Aye.
Commissioner Jancy,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
That concludes the list. As you now know, the answer has been to dismiss the issues involving Multnomah County School District 10J. Thank you all of those from the district for being here today and for being patient with our schedule. This matter has now been officially dismissed. You may hear of that in an official way from us by letter. Thank you for your attendance today.
Thank you all for your careful attention to this.
Thank you to the commission.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, we'll move on now to the agenda that's nearly complete. We have staff advice that one of those that's important is just for me just to understand that the Special District Association of Oregon, its public meetings law approval, the training has been approved, and that's important from a local government perspective. They've worked with us and we with them, so that's good news. We got the two other items. Trainers report and exec director's report.
Chair Fiscum, before we
Please.
have the trainers report, I'm going to invite the commission, based on the legal advice that you received in executive
Oh,
session.
thank you.
I'm inviting the commission to let me know if there is any particular action you would like me to take or that you would like to take in response to the letter from Janet Hoffman.
Right, I was going to raise that. Thank you for doing so. I forgot the letter that we received from the counselor for Boba Subasic, Janet Hoffman, the subject that we can now in public session, so we can talk about that in a way we couldn't in executive session. You have our council's recommendation, have our council's words for us to consider executive session. I'm open to suggestions on how you'd like to proceed with regard to Ms. Hoffman's letter. If we, Mr. Jancy, please.
I'd be in favor of taking no action in response to the letter.
I understand that. I think that the two options we have are take no action, which doesn't disadvantage anybody. The other option is to send a letter to Ms. Hoffman indicating that we intend to take no action. So I don't mind your suggestion, Commissioner. Any consensus, colleagues, on how you'd want to proceed? If we quote in the best sense of this phrase, do nothing, there's no disadvantage for Ms. Hoffman nor for her client on whose behalf she's writing. So that may be enough of a consensus to leave it there.
Okay,
Executive?
that is fine.
Okay. Okay, let's do that. Okay, let's move to the trainer's report. Mr. Esparza, are you in the room? There you are.
Yes, sir. My name is Charlie Esparza. I'm with the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. I'm a trainer, and I'm here to present the trainer's report. I'll keep this brief. The trainings that were hosted by public bodies throughout the state, these are both online and in person. I'll go down the list really quick. Northwest Oregon Housing Authority, the Oregon Department of State Lands, Multnomah County Health Department Integrated Clinical Services, Department of Land Conservation and Development, Oregon Department of Emergency Management, Lane County Commissioners, and the Oregon Association of School Business Officials. We've had a full schedule of online classes since we last met, but to end this, I'm going to give you the fall highlights we have coming up. We have future South Oregon trips planned, future North Coast trips planned, and we are now seeing the ethics law training come back into play. And that's all I have. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions, colleagues, for training, recognizing how important that is for us to be committed to training local officials? Hearing and seeing no comments, the last item on our agenda, unless I'm missing something, is our executive director's report. Please proceed.
So my report this time is going to focus on kind of where we started, which is public meetings law. Is anyone happy with public meetings? I have said from the beginning, this law went for 50 years with basically no enforcement. There was no agency providing rules, there was the AG manual, but other than that, no one had any, other than exec session given us in the 90s. The rest, public meetings law, including serial communications and everything else, it was only the going to court. So it is now in our jurisdiction. We have adopted the rules. We're trying to adopt, provide guidance, provide trainings. Some people want there to be an intent requirement, want there to be changes to the law. I understand that. Personally, I think the law itself, not having been touched for 50 years, for the most part, may need some changes. How to go about that is somewhat up in the air. I know that their Rep Sosa, I had suggested meeting with them earlier this year. It would be a good idea to assemble a work group. Let's see this time, not focus on how to enforce it, but are there improvements that could be made to the public meetings law itself?
Which would be a 2027 issue.
Well, I mean,
presumably.
Rep Sosa and the League of Oregon Cities and some of the others that are pushing for this are saying, kind of, let's get it through in 26. I think that is possible. My concern is that it's a haphazard process. We will push through some bill that fixes this part and fixes that part. What I'm proposing, while it doesn't get it all done in the 26th session, it would be for 27, is that it is more appropriate a topic for the Oregon Law Commission. The OLC, this is the type of thing that they are set up to do, is look at what law reforms are needed in a particular area. They did that with the ethics laws back when Ron started. So I have spoken with the director of the OLC about their schedule and how it would work. And basically it would require us to submit a proposal to them by sometime late November. And they would bring it to the program committee and then the full law commission. And the law commission, I detailed in my memo, it is comprised of the legislators and the judges and, deans from the law schools and a lot of volunteers. And what they would do is then, if they opened this as their project, do a comprehensive assemble stakeholders, hear from everyone, look at what all the other states are doing, and look at what changes are needed to make the public meetings law more workable and effective for everyone, including us. So my proposal would be to start working on the proposal. I will still, of course, work with and communicate with Rep. Sosa and the various stakeholders.
Any comments, colleagues, on that agenda going forward? Okay with that? Any questions about it? I'm okay with it. I think it's going to be, this is a generalization from my lobby background, it's going to be relatively unrealistic in light of competing agendas that are bigger politically than ours to get something through in 2026 that will solve the problem. My aspiration would be to do that for a variety of administrative and public policy reasons. Tough to do in a 30-day session. That delays things till 2027, but the solution that's devised in 27, whatever it would be, law commission otherwise, would be better than doing something quickly. Questions, comments, concerns, beliefs? Hearing and seeing none. Any other comments for the good of the order? Okay, as of this moment, thank you, colleagues, for your participation. We now stand adjourned and look forward to September.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Only an hour off my hopeful schedule.